Unaware her husband was the secret multi-billionaire who owned the very bank she worked for, Madison Whitford filed for divorce with a triumphant smile, convinced she was leaving a broke nobody for Grant Ellison, her polished, powerful bank boss who promised her the luxury life she felt Alex could never give. But the moment Madison placed those divorce papers on the table, Alex's quiet eyes didn't break the way she expected. They sharpened, as if he knew a truth that could shatter every illusion she'd built. That night, while Madison packed her things to move in with her boss-turned-lover, Alex calmly tucked their children into bed, unaware they weren't biologically his, and whispered a prayer for a marriage he thought he had failed. But why did the poor husband she discarded suddenly make her boss nervous just by walking past him in the hallway? Why did Grant, the man she abandoned her marriage for, flinch when Alex shook his hand? Why did the bank's senior executives stand when Alex entered the boardroom the next morning? And why did the man Madison believed was powerless hold the master key to every account, every loan, every file, including hers and her lover's? What exactly was Alex hiding? And what was he about to do to the wife who betrayed him and the boss she married? The evening rain had just ended, leaving the New Haven skyline washed clean in silver. A soft wind slipped through the cracked open window of the modest two-bedroom apartment Alex Whitford called home, carrying the faint smell of wet asphalt and pine. Inside, the living room glowed with the warm amber light of a single standing lamp, the only expensive thing Alex ever purchased without hesitation, because Madison loved how it made her skin look soft and perfect. She sat cross-legged on the couch now, her back to the window, scrolling through her phone, while two steaming mugs of chamomile tea sat on the coffee table untouched. Alex watched her from the kitchen doorway, one shoulder against the frame, hands tucked in the pockets of his worn gray sweatpants. He had spent the last 10 minutes choosing the right moment to speak. He'd reheated dinner twice, waiting for her to come home from work. She had texted running late, then don't wait up, then 30 minutes later, actually heading home. She hadn't kissed him when she walked in. She barely looked at him. Still, he loved her. Quietly, deeply, fiercely, too fiercely. "Madison?" he said softly. She didn't lift her eyes. "I made your favorite tonight, lemon pepper salmon, the artisan one from that place in Fairhaven." She scrolled again. "Not hungry." Alex approached her slowly, trying to remember every advice podcast he had listened to about gentle communication, understanding, empathy. "You haven't eaten since morning," he murmured. "You told me you skipped lunch because the loan committee meeting ran long." This made her pause only for a breath, only long enough to say, "I said I'm not hungry, Alex." He nodded, swallowing the sting, and sat at the far end of the couch. Just close enough to feel her presence, not close enough to irritate her. He'd learned that gradient months ago. Madison finally locked her phone, exhaling sharply as if stressed from something she couldn't express, or didn't want to express. Her hair, glossy, pressed and immaculate, fell perfectly against her cheekbones. She always looked perfect these days. Perfect hair, perfect nails, perfect perfume, perfect smile for everyone but him. Alex forced his voice steady. "Bad day at work?" She gave a brittle laugh. "Every day is bad, Alex. I handle overworked staff, stressed clients, and impossible loan targets. Meanwhile, you just exist." The words sliced deeper than she realized, and yet Alex's jaw unclenched. His fingers curled into his palm, then released. He'd learned to absorb pain like rain hitting a roof, softening the sound so no one inside heard it. "I'm trying my best," he said quietly. She sighed heavily, annoyed. "Trying your best doesn't pay for a new car, or a mortgage, or private school for the kids." Alex nodded again, always nodding, always absorbing, never reacting. "I know we've been tight lately, but things will get better," she snorted. "By doing what? Staying at that dead-end IT job? You're content to be average." He flinched at the word. Average. She never meant it as neutral. She meant it as an insult, as a measurement of his worth. "If you give me some time, I don't want to talk about this." She cut him off. "I'm exhausted." She leaned back, closing her eyes briefly. Alex studied her face. Beautiful, delicate, familiar, yet distant now, like a portrait he once painted, but someone else had retouched. There was a time she'd curl into his chest after bad days, a time she'd talk for hours, a time she didn't hide her phone with her palm angled just right. He swallowed. "The kids are asleep," he said gently. "Caleb asked why you didn't tuck him in." Madison opened her eyes and rolled them. "Because I'm tired, Alex. God, not everything needs a therapy session." He exhaled through his nose, measured and slow. "I wasn't attacking, just telling you what he asked." "Well, tell him Mommy works harder than everyone else in this family." He nodded again, a third nod for the night, a quiet acceptance of blame, a mask of humility. But something in him cracked when she stood abruptly, walked into the bedroom, and shut the door behind her. Not slammed, not harshly, but softly. Soft enough to tell him she stopped caring about him long before this moment. He remained seated for a long time, watching the cooling tea steam into nothingness. He didn't cry, didn't speak, didn't blame her. Instead, he reached for the remote and turned off the lamp, leaving the room coated in darkness except for the blinking lights of the city outside. He whispered to himself, "I hope tomorrow's better, for both of us." But it wouldn't be, because outside, parked across the street in a black Audi Q5, Grant Ellison watched the apartment window silently, waiting for Madison's signal. And Madison, in the bedroom, had just texted him, "He bought that cheap dinner again. I can't do this much longer. I'm coming over." Alex, unaware he'd married a woman who was dismantling him piece by piece, and stood up, cleaned the untouched dinner, and whispered into the empty kitchen, "Madison deserves the world. One day, I'll be able to give her everything." He had no idea he already did, and she was already giving herself to someone else. The next morning unfolded with a quiet softness that didn't match the tension sleeping inside the walls of the apartment. Sunlight stretched across the kitchen table, settling on a half-eaten bowl of cereal Caleb had abandoned before school. Alex stood at the sink in a navy polo and khakis, the same outfit combination Madison always mocked for being too middle-class dad, rinsing the dishes and humming under his breath. He didn't know why he hummed. Habit, maybe. Comfort. Something to drown out the memory of Madison slipping out last night with her purse clutched close to her chest, claiming she needed air. Air that apparently took 3 hours to breathe. Harper toddled into the kitchen in pink pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, Mommy gone?" Alex dried his hands on the dish towel and crouched to lift her. "She left early today," he said softly. "Important day at work." Harper rested her head against his shoulder, small fingers curling into the fabric of his shirt. "She angry?" Alex smiled gently. "No, sweetheart. Just tired." The lie tasted metallic, but he fed it to her anyway. He placed Harper in her booster seat, set a banana and a sippy cup in front of her, then glanced at the clock. Madison hadn't texted. No apology, no explanation. The woman who once used to kiss him awake now vanished like smoke, leaving him clutching at routines to stay upright. A soft buzz from the counter snapped him out of his thoughts. Madison's tablet lit up with a new notification, her lock screen showing the digital clock. 7:03 a.m., and a preview message that flickered before the screen dimmed again. Alex froze. He hadn't read the whole thing, only the first words. "Grant. Last night was..." He blinked, heartbeat suddenly thick in his chest. He reached for the tablet, then stopped himself. He trusted his wife. He wanted to trust her. He wouldn't invade her privacy. He wouldn't be like his father, broken by suspicion. He stepped back, inhaling sharply, wiping his damp palms on his pants. "Not again," he whispered. "Don't assume things, Alex. Don't destroy what you can protect." But the words didn't calm him this time. He carried Harper to the car, buckled her into her seat, and headed to Caleb's school for drop-off. His oldest barely said a word. Madison usually did the morning drive. Today he stared out the window, silent, confused. "Buddy? Everything okay?" Alex asked. Caleb shrugged. "Mommy said you don't try hard enough." The words crushed Alex's lungs. "Try for what?" he asked gently. "To make money. She said Mr. Grant works harder." Alex swallowed the ache. I work hard, son. I just do it quietly. Caleb nodded but didn't look convinced. After dropping them off, Alex sat in the parking lot for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, eyes closed. A cold realization crept over him. Madison wasn't just stressed. She was slipping away. Emotionally, physically, maybe permanently. And Alex, for all his kindness, all his patience, didn't know how to stop it. At Stateside National Bank, Madison walked through the glass doors like a woman stepping onto a red carpet. Confident, sharp, radiating ambition. Staff greeted her with polite smiles, unaware of the chaos brewing beneath her flawless exterior. Grant's office door cracked open just as she passed. His voice, low and hushed, spilled into the hallway. "Close it quick," he whispered to her. "People are watching." A thrill rushed through her as she slipped inside and he shut the door behind her. "Morning," she breathed. Grant pulled her in by the waist and kissed her neck. "Last night was incredible," he whispered. She smiled, the same smile she hadn't given Alex in months. "I told Alex I was exhausted and needed a walk." Grant smirked. "He bought that? He always buys everything," she said with a scoff. Grant stepped back, loosening his tie. "Good, because I have news." Her heartbeat quickened. "What news?" He leaned against his desk, arms folded. "The VP of Operations is retiring. If things go well, I'll be promoted. And when I take that office," his eyes drifted down her body, "I want you beside me." Madison felt a rush of vindication. All her mother's warnings about marrying poor men with weak futures replayed in her mind like prophecy. "Once we finalize your divorce," Grant continued, "I'll make sure you get a senior position. Double your salary, new car, new life." Madison's breath caught. "Are you serious?" Grant's smirk deepened. "You deserve everything he couldn't give you." Her chest warmed with arrogance, pride, triumph. She had chosen the right man. Back home, Alex stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his collar. A knock came at the door, sharp, unexpected. He opened it to find Derek Vaughn, his best friend and silent guardian of his empire, standing in a charcoal suit, eyes grave. "Alex," Derek said quietly, "we need to talk." Alex stepped aside. "What's wrong? You look like someone died." Derek entered, looking around the apartment with a sadness Alex didn't recognize. "Listen, something's off with Madison." Alex's throat tightened. "What makes you say that?" Derek hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "One of my firm's clients saw her last night, at 10 p.m., getting into a black Audi on Riverside." Alex froze. Derek continued, voice low. "With her boss." The room fell silent, completely silent. Alex didn't breathe, didn't blink, didn't move. Finally, he whispered, "No, Madison wouldn't." Derek looked him straight in the eyes. "Alex, I think she would." Alex's world shifted, quietly, silently, and permanently. After Derek left, the apartment fell into a hush so heavy it felt like a weight pressing against Alex's sternum. The clock above the kitchen doorway ticked steadily, each second slicing deeper into his thoughts. He sat at the edge of the couch, elbows braced against his knees, staring at nothing as the truth, still shapeless, still resisting form, circled him like a ghost waiting to be acknowledged. Madison was cheating. He didn't say the words out loud. He couldn't. Even thinking them felt like a betrayal against the marriage he'd spent 8 years protecting with blind devotion. But Derek wasn't the type to exaggerate. Derek didn't deal in rumors. Derek dealt in evidence. Alex leaned back slowly, letting the memories creep forward. Not dramatic moments, no screaming fights, no slammed doors. Just small, sharp changes he had tucked away in the corners of his mind, telling himself he was imagining things. That trauma had made him paranoid, that Madison was different from the women who destroyed the men in his family. He pressed the heels of his palms to his eyes and the first memory surfaced. It was 2 years ago. He'd spent weeks planning a surprise anniversary dinner, reservations at a rooftop restaurant Madison once cried over because she thought it was too far out of budget. He saved overtime pay, skipped lunches, canceled a weekend getaway with Derek, and bought her the dress she had screenshot online but never purchased. He stood in the living room holding the garment bag, smiling like an idiot. when Madison walked in wearing a new gold necklace. "Where did you get that?" he'd asked. "Gift from the team," she'd said casually, brushing past him. "A team gift? That looks expensive." She shrugged. "You ask too many questions sometimes." He remembered the coldness in her tone, how she didn't even look at the gift he'd prepared, how she told him the dinner was sweet but unnecessary and suggested they eat takeout instead. He blamed himself. He thought maybe she was overwhelmed with work. But now, who bought that necklace? Grant. It had to be Grant. Another memory surfaced like an iceberg rising from dark water. A year ago, he'd walked into their bedroom to find Madison crying silently on the edge of the bed. He rushed to her immediately, kneeling in front of her, holding her hands, swallowing panic. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" She pulled back sharply, wiping her tears. "It's nothing. I'm fine." "You're crying, Mads." "It's hormones," she'd said. "You wouldn't understand." She wasn't pregnant at the time. He remembered the flash of guilt in her eyes, how she pushed him away, how she turned off her phone screen the moment he entered, how she refused to tell him what upset her. He told himself she deserved privacy. He let it go. Because loving Madison often meant shrinking himself. But now, replaying it with new clarity, he saw the truth. She wasn't crying because of him. She was crying because she was already emotionally torn between two men, and she hadn't chosen Alex. Another memory. The kids. The bedtime stories. The subtle shift in Caleb's behavior. How he stopped hugging Alex back. How he started parroting phrases like, "Real men make real money." How Madison cheered when Grant gave him a remote control car just because. Harper, only 3, called Grant Uncle G with too much familiarity. Madison laughed whenever it happened. Alex forced a smile every time, pretending it didn't sting. He remembered the day Caleb looked him dead in the eye and asked, "Daddy, why don't you dress like Mr. Grant?" He'd chuckled then. Now it felt like a knife twisting. And then the biggest memory, the one he had buried so deep he almost forgot it existed. 6 months ago, a missed anniversary. Madison claimed she had a mandatory after-hours meeting at the bank. Alex stayed up waiting until almost midnight. She walked in smelling of wine she claimed was from a co-worker's retirement toast. Grant's retirement toast. Except that co-worker didn't retire for another 3 months. He never questioned her. He trusted her completely. He believed she wouldn't hurt him the way his mother hurt his father, the way his aunt hurt his uncle, the way betrayal ran through his family like a hereditary disease. But he was wrong. The patterns were repeating, history was rewriting itself, and he had become exactly what he feared most, a man who loved blindly, a man who assumed loyalty where there was none, a man who ignored his own instincts because he wanted to believe his wife couldn't be like the others. He leaned back, breath shaky, fingers gripping the couch cushions. His phone buzzed. He looked down. A message from Madison. "We need to talk tonight. Don't be dramatic." Dramatic. The word detonated inside him. He typed a response slowly. "I'll be home. Just drive safe." Simple, gentle, kind. Even now he was kind. He stood, straightened his shirt, and walked to the kitchen window. Outside, the city moved normally. Cars passing, joggers running, neighbors walking dogs. But his world was shifting, cracking, rearranging into a reality he didn't recognize. Behind him, the front door opened, and Derek stepped in again, quieter this time. "You okay?" he asked softly. Alex didn't turn. "No. Do you want me to start digging?" Alex inhaled sharply. Finally, he said, "No, not yet. I need to see if she'll tell me the truth." Derek stepped closer. "And if she doesn't?" Alex's jaw clenched, the first sign of steel beneath the softness. "If she lies to me tonight, then yes." He lifted his eyes to the darkening sky. "Start digging." The kindness in him trembled. The revenge in him awakened. Evening folded over the city in a thin gray veil, the kind that made streetlights blink on early and turned everything inside apartment windows into soft silhouettes. Alex set 2 plates of roasted chicken and green beans on the table, a quiet ritual he refused to abandon. Then checked the door, the clock, his phone. He'd put the kids to bed early, reading the last pages of Caleb's favorite space book twice, because Caleb kept asking whether brave astronauts ever feel scared and lie about it. Sometimes, Alex had said, closing the book gently, sometimes they lie because they're trying to keep the ship steady. Caleb fell asleep with his forehead creased, as if worried he'd understood too much. At 8:47 p.m., the front door opened. Madison walked in with a glossy toad on her arm and the kind of smile people practice in bathroom mirrors before job interviews. Polished, bright, deeply empty. "You cooked," she said, sniffing the air. "Again." "I figured we could talk," Alex replied, voice steady. He pulled out her chair. She didn't sit. She dropped the toad on the chair instead, then slipped her heels off and rubbed the top of one foot with the other, as if the day had exhausted her bravery. "Okay," she sighed, finally lowering herself into the seat. "Let's talk." Alex studied her face like a man reading an old map. Every line familiar, every edge slightly different. He didn't accuse, didn't raise his voice. He placed a folded napkin beside her plate. "You said we need to talk," he began. "About what?" Madison glanced at the food and reached for her water. "About us," she said carefully. "About expectations." In his chest, something quiet curled up to listen. "Go on," he said. She lifted her chin. "I'm not happy, Alex. We live paycheck to paycheck. You don't dress for the future you say you want. You think being nice is enough." She stirred her water with a straw that wasn't there. "It's not." "I hear you," he said. "Are you seeing someone?" Madison flinched. It was a flicker, small enough to miss if he hadn't been watching the way a surgeon watches a monitor. Then her mouth softened into pity. "Of course not," she said. "That's not what this is." He didn't blink. "Grant's name popped up on your tablet this morning." Her eyes narrowed. "You read my messages now?" "I didn't read anything," he replied. "I saw a preview. Last night was..." She laughed, dry, brittle, practiced. "A joke, work humor. We were talking about a loan committee dinner. You know how people text." She speared a green bean, lifted it, then set the fork down without eating. "You need to stop being paranoid." He breathed once, shallow. "Were you in his car last night?" Madison's lips parted, closed. "I took a ride because it was late and my feet hurt. I'm allowed to have co-workers, Alex." "Co-workers don't kiss necks behind closed office doors," he said softly. Her jaw twitched. "You're inventing things." "I'm asking for honesty." "And I'm telling you, you're suffocating me," she snapped, voice rising a notch. "You police my time, my friends, my clothes, my schedule. Everything is a guilt trip with you." In the bedroom, a floorboard creaked, the ghost of a sleeping child rolling over. Both of them paused, listening to the small sound. When the silence returned, Madison leaned back, cooled. "Look," she said, "we've grown apart. It happens. I want more, a bigger life. You want comfort. We're not aligned." His hands relaxed on the table. "If you're leaving me for him, say it." "I'm not leaving you for anyone," she replied, choosing the exact wrong words. "I'm leaving because I want a husband who can stand beside me in the world I'm building. And your boss happens to be standing there already." She smiled with the finality of a verdict. "He understands ambition." The room chilled 2 degrees. Alex considered the shape of those words. He saw the choice embedded inside them, like a hook hidden in bait. He could thrash, bleed, prove her right about being emotional, or he could do the unthinkable. Let the hook sink deeper, then cut the line she didn't know he held. "Okay," he said. Madison blinked. "Okay? Okay. If you're sure this is what you want." She stared at him, almost disappointed he hadn't exploded. "So you agree we should divorce?" "If it makes you happy," he answered. A shadow of triumph crossed her eyes. "It will? Then you'll file," he added mildly. "You'll put your story on paper, under oath." She hesitated only a breath. "Fine. Full disclosures too," he said. "Every asset, every transaction." The second hesitation lasted longer. "Obviously." He nodded once, rose and carried his plate to the sink as if they'd just negotiated over weekend plans. Madison watched him, unsettled by the absence of fire. "I'll sleep at my mother's," she said. "I'll pick up the kids after school tomorrow." Alex dried his hands on a towel. "We'll coordinate." She slid her heels back on. "Don't be dramatic." "Drive safer," he said. The same words he'd texted earlier, the same comfort he'd always offered. She left without looking back. The door closed. The apartment exhaled. Alex stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the clean plate in his hand. He set it down quietly and pulled his phone from his pocket. He called Derek. "She lied," Alex said. "I figured," Derek replied. "Are you ready?" Alex paused, not for doubt, but for ritual, for the ceremony of crossing a line he'd refused to approach his whole life. "Yes." "Good," Derek said. "Tyrese is outside. Open the door." A knock landed a second later. Alex opened to Tyrese Buckley, broad-shouldered, eyes carved from years of seeing too much. He stepped in with a hard-shell case and set it on the table. "No one wants to meet me this way," Tyrese said. "But you called at the right time." Alex didn't offer pleasantries. "What can you do without breaking the law?" "Everything that matters," Tyrese replied, clicking open the case. He pulled out a small folder. "First, we map her digital life. Metadata, patterns, not content. Second, we track movements. Lawful public surveillance, no wiretaps. Third, we build a timeline. Fourth, we confirm paternity if you authorize." Alex swallowed the word like glass. "Authorize?" Tyrese slid a discreet kit across the table. "Brushes, from the kids' toothbrushes. Put them in here. Clean. Sealed. Chain of custody documented." Alex nodded, throat tight. "What else?" Tyrese's eyes didn't flinch. "If she's committing financial misconduct at the bank, side favors, quid pro quo, data mishandling, we'll find it. If your wife and her boss abused lending protocols, we'll find that too." Derek's voice crackled through speaker. "Alex, remember, we're not blowing anything up yet. We're building a prosecution, controlled, surgical." "I know," Alex said softly. Tyrese placed a printed photo on the table, grainy but clear enough. Madison and Grant in the black Audi, her head tipped back, his mouth at her neck. Time-stamped. Riverside. 10:12 p.m. The air left Alex's lungs in one long, even stream. He didn't cry, didn't curse, didn't beg reality to reverse itself. "Document everything," he said. "Every pattern, every lie, every dollar." "Copy," Therese said. 15 steps, Derek added. "No more, no less. We do this my way." Alex's gaze hardened. "We'll do it the right way." Therese packed the photo. "One more thing." He paused. "If the children aren't yours, what do you want to do?" Alex felt something like a winter shore collapse inside him. Ice breaking, water rushing, a silence deeper than grief. "I want the truth," he said. "And after that?" Therese asked. Alex lifted his eyes. Kindness dimmed, not dead, but moved to the back seat where it could no longer steer. "After that," he said, "we hold everyone accountable." Tyrese snapped the case shut. "Then tonight we start." He left by the back stairwell. Derek clicked off. The apartment settled into a hush that felt cleaner somehow, like the moment a surgeon scrubs in and the room becomes a temple. Alex moved quietly through the house. He collected 2 small toothbrushes, sealed them in labeled pouches with shaking hands, and wrote the time with neat, careful strokes. He stood at the doorway of the kids' room and watched their shadows breathe. He loved them. He would always love them. Love did not require biology, but truth did. He placed the pouches on the counter, turned off the kitchen light, and stared out into the night that had finally stopped pretending to be anything other than what it was. Not peace, not safety. A battleground, but one he would fight with precision. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Board meets tomorrow. We're ready when you are." DV Alex typed a single word in reply. "Proceed, but not with fury, with law, with evidence, with a plan designed to end careers, rewind lies, and bankrupt the people who mistook his kindness for permission." Tyrese Buckley moved through the city like someone who had learned to walk where shadows met light. At 5:12 a.m., before most commuters had poured into traffic, he crouched beneath an overhang across from a townhome on Riverside where Grant Ellison lived, with a polished set of rolled-up business newspapers and the smell of expensive cologne in the vestibule. He wasn't there for the cologne. He was there for a schedule: who came and left, what cars were used, which rooms had late-night visitors. A small thermal camera blinked in his lap. His phone vibrated with the first batch of overnight surveillance. Timestamps, GPS pings, a quick sequence of images of Grant's black Audi backing out of the driveway at 10:07 p.m. Then a blurred passenger silhouette, Madison, slipping in at 10:10 p.m. The metadata matched Derek's photo from the other night. The pattern was building. Tyrese extracted a cigarette from the pack, didn't light it, and instead dialed a secure line. "I've got movement," he said. "We're building a pattern. Riverside, 10 p.m., Grant's Audi. 2 nights in a row. They're sloppy." Derek's voice came through, low and clinical. "Good. Preserve everything. Timestamp. Chain of custody. Alex wants ironclad evidence. Digital patterns, bank favors, anything that shows collusion between Grant and Madison." Tyrese tapped his thumb over the screen, and the camera recorded the rain as it began, each drop a tiny percussion on the hood of his car. He liked the rain when he was watching. It blurred faces just enough to hide, just enough to hint. Across town, in an office above a nondescript law firm, Derek Vaughn scrolled through the exhibits. He'd already put subpoenas in motion to requisition Madison's bank logs, her loan approvals, and any discretionary approvals that could be tied to Grant's jurisdiction. He knew the procedural choreography: subpoenas, preservation letters, emergency ex parte filings if they could show imminent asset dissipation. He moved precisely. He thought in legal chess. Alex watched the two men operate like two sides of him, Tyrese the hunter, Derek the architect. He felt like something older in him had been unlatched. Not a thirst for blood, but a hunger for order, for truth, for a ledger balanced. That afternoon, Alex asked for a meeting at the bank under the excuse of speaking with a human resources liaison about a corporate IT position his friend might accept. It was a thin pretense. Alex hadn't worked there publicly for years. The security guard who used to give him a nod when he visited his wife now straightened in a way the guard had never straightened before. An assistant rose mid-step as he passed, his cheeks flushing with an involuntary respect that surprised him. He didn't stop them. He watched the ripples he caused like a man seeing the way a pebble moved the surface of a pond. He'd built these ripples over years. Trusts, proxy boards, shell corporations, a web of ownership that kept him off every glossy list and out of every spotlight. The bank's operating paper trail never mentioned the Whitford name in public filings. Those same filings hid a cluster of trusts with names that read like poetry to no one but those who dealt in legacy law. Grant, in his glass office, was all tailored arrogance. He rose to offer a hand when Alex entered, an instinctive show of power. Alex took it with the same calm he used at home. Nothing performative. Grant's handshake tightened for a heartbeat, then loosened. He tried to smile. It didn't reach his eyes. "I didn't expect to see you here," Grant said, voice thin. "Madison's husband, right?" Small world. Alex shifted his weight, serene. "I'm here to discuss some IT security updates, but also..." He glanced at Grant's desk, noticing a stack of approved loan files with Madison's initial on the top. "I like to stay informed about the people who work at the bank." Grant's laugh was quick and brittle. "Of course, you wouldn't want any surprises." "Surprises are costly," Alex replied. After the meeting, Grant paced in his office and dialed Madison. He held the phone to his ear, listening as if someone had inserted needles into his calm. At the same time, Tyrese's overnight stakeout produced a new lead, a dinner reservation receipt at Lark and Vine, a place Grant often used for client entertainment. The receipt bore Madison's name and matched the time of the Audi drop-off 3 nights earlier. Tyrese forwarded it to Derek and Alex with a single subject line: pattern intentional. Derek called it a triangulation: photo, GPS, receipt, 3 independent nodes creating a web. Alex felt the web tighten, and instead of recoil, he welcomed the structure. But he didn't act rashly. He ordered 2 quiet things: a discreet DNA pretest kit sent to his home, to be used only if Tyrese returned with enough evidence to justify a court motion, and a confidential freeze protocol drafted by Derek that would, if authorized, allow the firm to petition the court for temporary asset holds if evidence showed malfeasance. He wasn't interested in public spectacle yet. This was strategy, surgical and clean. Late that night, Tyrese followed Grant to a private parking garage where the executive parked beside 2 older men who smelled of bourbon and old money. Cameras in the garage were poor quality. Tyrese made calls to sources who could provide access to municipal footage. Every door he opened required a favor or a small payment. He wasn't above either. The city has levers, he muttered, and he was adept at pulling them. In a small, dim cafe that smelled like burnt espresso in last night's paper, Madison posted pictures of a handbag and a sunset to her social account with the caption, "New Beginnings." She made a point to tag Grant at the location later that week. The caption was a flare, intended to provoke envy, to stake a claim. It landed in Alex's feed only because Derek forwarded it, noting the timestamp and the tag. The pieces were connecting, the story drafting itself in a ledger of evidence. That same evening, Alex tucked Caleb in, kissed Harper's brow, and told him a story about a captain who navigated by starlight. Caleb asked if captains ever made mistakes, and Alex admitted they did. "But they learn, son. They chart a new course." When the kids were asleep, Alex sat with Derek and Tyrese in his living room. Maps, photos, and a file folder lay open like a small altar. They talked quietly, but with a hunger that felt like religious fervor. "First," Derek said, ticking on his fingers, "documented pattern. We have that. Second, paternity, if it matters. Third, look for bank-level misconduct tied to their dates. Fourth, protect assets." Tyrese added, "We get hard timestamps and link them to discretionary approvals. People who bend policy to favor someone leave traces." Alex listened and then spoke, his voice even, precise. "We do this by the book. No shortcuts, no leaks. My goal isn't to destroy in anger. It's to correct a lie." Derek's jaw tightened. "And scald them in court." "Exactly," Alex replied. "But first we must make them betray themselves." He slid one of the photos across the coffee table. Madison with Grant in the Audi, hair loose, face turned up. "We start with the pattern," he said. "Then we make the bank's own records tell the rest." Tyrese smiled, the expression of a man who enjoys hunting ghosts until they become visible beasts. "I like your patience, Mr. Whitford." Alex's eyes didn't smile. "Patience is a tool. So is restraint." They left the files open, the photos under a lamp that hummed faintly. The city outside exhaled. Inside, plans moved like chess pieces finding their squares. And somewhere in the bank, a mid-level executive opened an email from an unknown trust, telling them to prepare critical internal reports for an external audit. The thread's subject read, "Immediate compliance review, confidential." No one outside the inner circle knew whose hand had placed that request, but it was the first formal ripple. The first official tremor in the life of a man who believed he'd already won by trading a marriage for a corner office. A domino had been touched. The game was no longer rumor. It had begun. The fluorescent lights in the regional headquarters of Stateside National Bank hummed in a sterile rhythm as morning unfolded. Buzzing printers, tapping keyboards, the familiar chorus of a weekday banking floor. But today, an undertone of tension slipped beneath it all. A subtle shift, a hush, a whisper of something bigger than protocol. At 10:16 a.m., the email hit every senior executive's inbox simultaneously. Subject, immediate compliance review. Confidential, from Central Holdings, Trust Oversight. The name alone froze pulses. Central Holdings wasn't some external agency. It was the quiet backbone of the bank's silent ownership. No one at Madison's level even knew it existed. By the time she saw staff whispering across cubicles, the executives were already pacing glass offices, phones pressed to ears, expressions stiff. She wandered toward Grant's door, heels clicking with the confidence of someone who believed she had access to the man holding the power in the building. She pushed the door open without knocking. Grant snapped his gaze up, startled. "Jesus, Madison, close the door." She did, shutting it behind her. "What's going on? Everyone is freaking out." He loosened his tie slightly and gestured at his screen. "We're under an internal audit." "Okay. So, these happen." She leaned against his desk, pouting a little. "They never take more than a day." "This one is different," Grant snapped. "This one came from Central Holdings." Madison stared blankly. "I don't know what that is." "Exactly," Grant said. "And that's a problem." He stood, pacing, rubbing his forehead. There was a tremble in his voice she had never heard before. His confidence. The trait that had lured her out of her marriage flickered. This isn't normal. They've requested loan approvals, discretionary overrides, employee communications, expense reports, everything. Madison felt something sink in her stomach. So, what does that mean for us? Grant pinched the bridge of his nose. It means someone is looking for something specific. He dropped into his chair, exhaling sharply. And I don't like being watched. She crossed her arms. Are we involved in something they'd question? Grant shot her a look. Madison, do you understand what discretionary override means? She blinked. You've approved some loans for my clients. And you pushed some of those applications through faster than protocol, he added sharply. Her heart stuttered. Because you said, I know what I said, he snapped. But if compliance sees a pattern, time-stamped approvals linked to us, someone may think it's quid pro quo. Her lips parted. Grant, he stood abruptly, walking toward the window, jaw clenched. And last night I got an email from the board chairman's office requesting a meeting tomorrow morning. Madison frowned. Why would they? I don't know, he barked. The bark wasn't about her. It was about fear. Real fear. A kind she had never seen in him. She stepped back slowly. Grant, are we in trouble? Grant didn't answer. He didn't have one. Across the city, in an office with glass walls and a breathtaking view of New Haven Harbor, Alex Whitford sat in a tailored steel gray suit that fit like it belonged to someone who negotiated with presidents, not cubicle workers. In front of him lay a 2-page summary from Derek and Tyrese. Pattern correlation, transportation logs, digital metadata, discretionary loan approvals, after-hours communications. Each element was clean, lawful, conclusive. Alex signed the bottom. Derek smiled slightly. With this pattern, we can build the misconduct case. But it's bigger than an affair now. Tyrese leaned forward. Your wife and her boss cost the bank money. Policy violations are a corporate sin. Alex's voice stayed even. They made the choices. We're just showing the consequences. He stood. His presence filled the room with quiet authority. No arrogance, no theatrics. Just the inevitability of truth. Schedule the paternity test with the lab, Alex added softly. Chain of custody intact. Tyrese nodded. Already in motion. Alex inhaled slowly. Good. He turned to the window and watched the city breathe. His heart didn't race. His hands didn't shake. Revenge wasn't rage in him. It was clarity. A knock tapped against the conference room door. A senior executive stepped in, straightening his tie nervously. Mr. Whitford, the board is ready for your directive on the compliance review. Alex nodded. Let's begin. At the bank, Madison's phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Linda, dress sharp tonight. Grant said he might introduce you to someone important. Linda, this is your moment, baby. Don't mess it up. Madison looked at herself in the reflection of Grant's office window, her hair perfect, her blouse crisp, her ambition glittering. She smiled. She thought she was rising, not falling. That evening, Alex returned home early for the first time in weeks. He heated dinner for the kids, read Harper 2 stories instead of 1, and helped Caleb build a spaceship out of Legos. Daddy, Caleb whispered as Alex tucked him in. Yes, buddy. Are you mad at Mommy? Alex froze, then sat on the edge of the bed. Why do you ask? Caleb shrugged. She said grown-ups get mad when they're jealous. Alex's throat tightened. Did she say that to you? Caleb nodded. Alex smoothed his hair gently. I'm not jealous of anything, Caleb. He swallowed. I'm just learning the truth. Are you leaving? Caleb whispered. Alex closed his eyes. Pain a sharp pulse behind them. No, he said. I'm not leaving. He kissed his forehead. But the truth might make some people leave us. Across town, Grant sat at his desk long after closing. The building was quiet, floors empty, lights dimmed. He reheated black coffee in a paper cup, hands trembling slightly. He stared at the audit request email, then at the calendar notification. Meeting with board chairman, tomorrow 9 a.m. He felt sweat beat at the base of his neck. He didn't know who had triggered this. He didn't know who was watching. He didn't know what they already knew, but he felt it. The slow, suffocating pull of a net tightening around him. He loosened his tie again. He poured out the untouched coffee, and for the first time since he started the affair with Madison, he wondered if he had miscalculated. Badly. The following morning arrived with a quiet coldness that felt unnatural for late spring. A thin mist hovered over the street as Alex walked toward the private laboratory, the kind that didn't accept walk-ins and didn't advertise online. Its frosted glass doors parted with a quiet hiss, the sterile smell of antiseptic rising to meet him. The technician, gray hair, glasses, in a manner both detached and compassionate, took the sealed envelopes from Alex's hand. "You followed chain of custody perfectly," the man said. "Brush samples, bagged, tagged, time-stamped. Very professional." Alex nodded once. "How long?" "By tonight," the technician replied. "No later than 10 p.m. Alex thanked him and stepped back out into the cold mist. The world looked strangely sharp this morning. Edges clearer, colors brighter, sounds louder, as if the universe knew he was walking toward a truth that could fracture a man's soul. He stood by his car for a long moment, inhaling slow, steady breaths. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't shaking. He was preparing for the possibility that the two children he had fed, carried, comforted, bathed, read stories to, prayed over, and loved with a devotion born from his own broken childhood might not be his in the blood. The thought didn't break him, but it carved him. Meanwhile, at Stateside National Bank, the atmosphere was electric with fear. In the executive boardroom, a long walnut table, 13 leather chairs, panoramic windows, Grant Ellison sat waiting. He had shaved twice this morning, changed his tie 3 times, ironed his cuffs by hand. His palms still sweated. The board members filed in gradually, murmuring in low tones. They avoided eye contact with him, not out of disrespect, but out of caution, like men stepping quietly around an exposed wire. At 9:02, the door opened and the chairman entered. Grant stood. The chairman didn't greet him. He simply set a folder on the table labeled Compliance Initiative, Internal Relief Protocol Confidential. Trust Oversight. Grant's mouth went dry. He sat slowly, forcing a confident expression. "I understand We'll ask the questions," the chairman said sharply. Grant's stomach dipped. Across the bank floor, Madison strutted through the maze of desks with a glow of manufactured success. The paper-thin confidence her mother had grafted into her since childhood blossomed now under fluorescent lights. Staff looked at her differently today, some with envy, some with curiosity, some with resentment. Word had already spread that a major audit was underway. Madison believed audits were merely corporate drama meant to scare underperformers. She didn't know audits were weapons, especially when the owner requested them. Her mother's voice echoed through her thoughts. "You're destined for men who can elevate you. Don't stoop to a simple life." She replayed Grant's promise from earlier that week. "When I get that VP office, you get your promotion and your new last name." She clung to that fantasy like oxygen. As she passed the glass corridor leading to the boardroom, an assistant accidentally bumped her shoulder while rushing past. "Sorry," the assistant said hurriedly. Madison narrowed her eyes. "Watch where you're going." The assistant flushed and hurried off. Madison smiled. She mistook fear for respect. Back in the boardroom, the chairman slid a stack of printed documents toward Grant. "These are irregularities discovered during the initial screening." Grant picked up the papers, hands slightly trembling. Loan approvals, time-stamped overrides, internal communication logs, Madison's initials, his digital signature, every pattern connecting them. He tried to laugh. Too high, too brittle. "There must be a misunderstanding. These timestamps coincide with after-hours activity," the chairman interrupted. "Activity that suggests policy favoritism." Grant swallowed. I can explain." "You will," another board member added, "under oath if necessary." Grant's breath hitched. Then the chairman said something that made his blood freeze. "The trust owner wants a full investigation." Grant's eyes widened. The owner? Yes. Do we know who that is?" The chairman narrowed his eyes. "We know more than you do." Meanwhile, Alex stepped into his home slowly. The hum of the refrigerator, the only sound in the quiet apartment. Caleb and Harper were at school. Madison hadn't returned his message about picking them up. He didn't expect her to. She had stopped considering him the center of anything months ago. He moved through the living room methodically, straightening a blanket, picking up a dropped toy spaceship, setting it on the coffee table with a gentleness he reserved only for the children. His phone buzzed. Derek, board meeting underway, phase 2 prepared, evidence stable. A second text followed. Tyrese tracked another dinner last night. More timestamps. 2 more receipts. We have enough to prove coordination. Alex typed, proceed with phase 2. I'll be ready for phase 3 after tonight. He didn't say what after tonight meant. He didn't need to. At 4:03 p.m., Madison picked up the kids from school, wearing a navy dress and a gold necklace she'd been hiding from Alex for weeks, gifted by Grant after one of their late-night meetings. Caleb climbed into the car quietly. Harper, too. The silence bothered her. Why are you two so quiet? Madison asked. Caleb looked at her with eyes older than 7 should be. Where's Daddy? At work, she said too quickly. You said he was jealous, Caleb replied. Madison stiffened. He is. Daddy said he's not. Well, Daddy lies sometimes. The words escaped her mouth before she measured them. Caleb's small face fell. Harper hugged her stuffed rabbit tighter. Madison swallowed irritation. Children complicated things. The next phase of her life, the luxury, the status, the richness, didn't quite fit the image of school pickups and bedtime stories, but she needed them for now. Grant wanted everything to look picture perfect for his promotion. Madison forced a smile. Mommy's just stressed. Let's get ice cream. The children nodded, though their eyes remained dim. At 9:12 p.m., Alex received a call. He froze, then answered. A calm, clinical voice spoke. Mr. Whitford, the paternity results are ready. Both reports confirm. Neither child is biologically yours. The world didn't implode. It went silent, completely silent. The kind of silence that happens underwater, heavy, numbing, absolute. He stood perfectly still, not breathing, not thinking, not collapsing, just absorbing the one truth he had suspected but hoped was impossible. The children he loved with every part of his soul weren't his. He whispered, "Thank you," and ended the call. He didn't cry. He walked to the table, sat down and folded his hands. His phone buzzed again. A text from Madison. Grant and I talked. I'm filing tomorrow morning. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Another buzz. And please don't start acting jealous and petty. It's unattractive. Alex stared at the screen, then typed one sentence. Understood. He set the phone down, and something inside him, something quiet, old, dormant, finally stood up. Not rage, not hatred, just truth. Truth sharpened into purpose. Tonight he wasn't the man she married. Tonight he was the man she should have feared. The courthouse steps were cold under a steel-gray morning sky, the kind that swallowed light and echoed footsteps. Lawyers hurried past with briefcases and coffees, but the real gravity of the day hung in the air like an invisible storm. A storm Madison Hale Whitford walked straight into wearing a cream suit, gold earrings, and the arrogance of someone who believed she was about to win. Beside her, Grant Ellison strutted with forced confidence, but his eyes kept scanning the parking lot. He'd barely slept after the board meeting the day before. His hands shook slightly even now, hidden in the pockets of his tailored coat. Madison took his arm. Relax, she whispered. Once the judge sees Alex has no income, no assets, no ambition, this will be quick. Grant's jaw tightened. I'm not worried about him, he muttered, though it didn't sound convincing. Inside courtroom 3B, Alex already sat at the petitioner's table with Derek Vaughn and Tyrese Buckley behind him. He wore a navy suit, simple, clean, elegant, but the air around him carried something stronger than wealth or power. Accuracy, purpose, truth sharpened into a blade. Madison froze when she saw him, not because he looked different, but because she had never seen him so still, so centered, so unshakable. No hunched shoulders, no timid nodding, no apologetic smile, just quiet strength. She tore her gaze away. The judge entered. Court began. Case number 21-3384, the clerk announced. Whitford versus Whitford. Petitioner, Alexander Whitford. Respondent, Madison Hale Whitford. Madison leaned towards her attorney. Petitioner? He filed? How? But before she could finish whispering, the judge raised a hand. Mrs. Whitford, the judge said, you are here today for divorce proceedings and several counters claims. This court has also accepted additional motions filed under sealed exhibits by Mr. Whitford's counsel. We will address them all today. Madison's chest tightened. She glanced at Alex. He didn't blink. Her attorney rose. Your Honor, we were not informed the petitioner. We proceed, the judge said. The opening strike, Derek's move. Derek stood. Your Honor, we submit Exhibit A verified chain of custody paternity analysis establishing that both minor children involved in this marriage are biologically fathered by Mr. Grant Ellison, present in this courtroom, and not by my client. The courtroom erupted in gasps. Madison shot to her feet. That is a lie. Alex, tell them. You know? Alex did not look at her. Not once. The judge slammed the gavel. Order! Grant went pale. Madison reached for him, but he recoiled slightly, out of shame, out of instinct, out of fear of being seen touching her. Derek continued. We further submit that Mrs. Whitford committed paternity fraud for 7 years, knowingly presenting the children as my clients to obtain financial and marital stability. Madison's attorney stammered something about contesting, but the judge cut him off. Unless you are contesting the lab accreditation or the chain of custody signatures, we move on. The attorney sat, defeated. Madison's voice cracked. Alex, please. Alex still didn't look at her. The silence between them was a canyon. The second strike, the affair timeline. Derek lifted another file. Exhibit B, an evidence timeline documenting Mrs. Whitford's affair with her bank superior, Mr. Ellison, including GPS logs, photo evidence, dinner receipts, time-stamped office footage, eyewitness affidavits, compliance violations, digital metadata of after-hours meetings. Grant's throat bobbed as he swallowed. The judge frowned deeply. Mr. Ellison, you do realize bank fraternization policies prohibit managerial supervisory relationships? Grant stuttered. I can explain. You will, the judge cut in. Madison gripped the edge of the table. This is harassment. Alex would never, but she stopped, because Alex finally turned his head, slowly, calmly, and looked at her with the kind of expression a surgeon gives a tumor before removal. Not anger, not hatred, not sorrow, just recognition. Recognition of what she truly was. Madison's body went cold. The third strike, financial crimes. Exhibit C, Derek said, details improper loan approvals initiated by Mrs. Whitford and signed off by Mr. Ellison, all in violation of federal banking standards. These approvals correlate with the timeline of their affair. The bank's trust owner authorized a full internal review. Grant's chair scraped back as he stood, panicked. Your Honor, I demand... Sit down, the judge ordered. Grant sat, shaking. Madison's mouth trembled. Alex, how did you... Who authorized... But she stopped again, because of what Derek said next. The bank's trust owner is present today. The courtroom turned. All eyes shifted to Alex. Madison's heart stopped. Grant's breath hitched. The judge stared in disbelief. Derek continued. My client, Mr. Alexander Whitford, is the silent multi-billionaire owner of Stateside National Bank and its 11 subsidiary institutions. The room exploded in whispers. Madison's knees buckled. She caught the table. Grant's eyes went wide with dread. The judge leaned forward slowly. Mr. Whitford, is this accurate? Alex stood. Yes, Your Honor. My ownership has always been private, and my trust authorized the audit. Madison crumpled into her seat, trembling. You own the bank? Alex? Her voice cracked like a snapped bone. Alex didn't speak. He didn't need to. The fourth strike, custody, assets, and ruin. Derek resumed. Your Honor, due to paternity fraud, adultery, financial misconduct, and intentional deception, We are requesting full dissolution of marital claims, no alimony, no access to marital assets, repayment of marital funds illegally diverted, full custody for Mr. Whitford's discretion, criminal investigation into the banking misconduct. Madison gasped. No custody? They're my children. They're not his, the judge said coldly, and you committed fraud. Sit down. She collapsed back again. Grant tried to stand, only to have two officers step forward. Mr. Ellison, the bailiff announced, you are being detained pending investigation into federal banking violations. Please stand. Grant's face drained of all color. He turned horrified toward Alex. Please, Grant whispered. Tell them you don't want. Alex's voice was calm as ice. You taught my son to ask why I wasn't a real man. You told my wife I wasn't enough. You stole my family, and you tried to destroy my name. He stepped closer, soft, controlled, deadly. You wanted my life, Grant. You're about to live the consequences instead. Grant broke down as the cuffs clicked. Madison screamed his name as they dragged him from the courtroom. The final strike, Madison's collapse. Mrs. Whitford, the judge said, voice cold enough to frost glass, due to your actions, you are awarded nothing. No spousal support, no marital assets, no bank employment, and you will be personally liable for all fraud-related fees. Madison shook violently. Alex, please, I didn't know. Alex finally spoke directly to her. You wanted a man with power, he said quietly. You wanted wealth. You wanted status. You wanted the world. He paused. And now you'll watch the world you chose destroy itself. Tears streamed down her face. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. Alex, please, I have nothing, she choked. He turned his back. You had everything.